So I was reminded this week in a video by the legendary studio guitarist turned prominent YouTuber Tim Pierce of a guitar technique that is super simple, but it sounds incredible and you can use it to start playing amazing sounding guitar solos today. In fact, it sounds so good that if you use it correctly, you can actually bring other grown adults to tears. And I can assure you it doesn't involve playing a bunch of scales in your solos. So let's get right into it and reveal this secret to super expressive and emotional guitar solos. So are you tired of practicing scales day in and day out and still being unable to create captivating guitar solos? If so, you're not alone. Many guitarists fall into the trap of thinking that mastering scales is the key to playing great guitar solos, and then their playing still sounds uninspired and non-creative. But fear not, because in this video, I'm going to show you a simple secret that's going to let you break free from that scale playing rut and start to create solos that are going to captivate your listeners. So grab your guitar and get ready to unleash your full potential as a guitarist. So what is this simple secret I promised you? Well, if you're an equipment geek like I am, you probably watch another YouTube channel called That Pedal Show. In July of 2022, the great Andy Timmons was on the show, and he played a piece of music that was so beautiful that it actually made one of the hosts start crying, and he had to get up and leave the set momentarily. That little episode went viral. I've seen tons of other videos about it, and just recently, the great studio musician and YouTuber Tim Pierce was compelled to do a video about what Andy played on his channel. So what was this magical song? Well, keep in mind, Andy has exquisite tone and touch on the instrument, so that plays a big part in whatever he plays. But the actual concepts that he was using are super simple. Now, I've done other videos on this type of playing, and you can find that here. And if you look in the description down below, you can find a link to a free guide on soloing with triads. And what Andy was doing in the video, he was playing second inversion, major and minor triads, and he was adding one other note to the triad to create a little bit of tension and resolution. And that's a concept that I've been referring to in my videos as triads plus one. Now, a triad is a chord or arpeggio that's made up of a root note, or the one, a note that is a third above that, and then another note that is a third above that second note. Let's make and play some triads, and then we'll get into the triad plus one concept so you can use that too. Okay, we're going to be in the key of A major today. So here are the notes of the A major scale. The root note, and we're going to be on the 6th string, is obviously A, and that's at the 5th fret. If I move up the neck a third above that A, I count over the B to C sharp at the 9th fret. Now, it's a major third, so we count 4 frets or 2 whole steps. So I've got A and C sharp. If I count 2 notes over from there, I skip over D and go to E. That is the 5th. So I've got the 1, the major third, and the 5th. A, C sharp, and E. Now, we can find these notes in various configurations all over the neck. A great way to practice that is just to go string by string and find the root note, in this case an A. So starting on the 6th string, the A at the 5th fret, I've got an A, C sharp at the 4th fret of the A string, E at the 7th fret of the A string. If I go to an A note on the A string, I've got A at the 12th fret, C sharp at the 11th fret of the D string, E at the 14th fret of the D string. If I go to my D string, I've got an A at the 7th fret, C sharp on the G string at the 6th fret, E at the 9th fret of the G string. If I go to my A note at the second fret of the G string, then I've got C sharp, 2nd fret of the B string, and E at the 5th fret of the B string. And lastly, if I go to my A note at the 10th fret of the B string. I've got C sharp at the 9th fret of the E, and E at the 12th fret of my E string. So and those are just some of the shapes that we can find. So let's try it now with a minor triad. We're going to use F sharp minor since it's the relative minor of A major. And if we make F sharp at the 2nd fret of the low E our root, and we go up a third, and this is a minor third, so we only go up 3 frets, we get an A note. Now, if we move 2 notes up from that A, we skip over B, and we get C sharp. So our F sharp minor triad, we've got the notes F sharp, A, and C sharp. And just like with our A major triad, we can find those shapes all over the fretboard. So we've got the F sharp at the 2nd fret of the low E. Then we've got our A and C sharp. We've got an F sharp at the 9th fret of the A string. F sharp, A, C sharp. We've got an F sharp at the 4th fret of the D string. And then we've got our minor third and the 5th. We've got an F sharp at the 11th fret of our G string. We've got an A note, 10th fret of the B string. C sharp at the 14th fret of the B string. Lastly, if we go to the F sharp at the 7th fret of the B string, then we've got A and C sharp on that high E string. So before we get into that super secret but super simple concept that Andy Timmons uses to play things that are so beautiful you can make grown men cry, we're going to take these triad shapes through a simple pop chord progression in the key of A. It's a little 6-bar progression. We're going to play A major for 2 bars, followed by a bar of F sharp minor, a bar of D, a bar of B minor, and then a bar of E major. So I'm going to play through the progression 3 times. First time through, I'm going to play triads that have their root on the low E string. Second time through, I'm going to play triads that have their root on the D string. Last time through, I'm going to play triads that have their root on the B string. So check it out. Here we go. So, okay, on to the next puzzle piece. I mentioned that Andy Timmons in this beautiful piece of music that got so much attention was playing second inversion triads. Well, what are those? Well, we don't have to start arpeggios from the root note. Instead of starting on the root, say with our A major and playing A, C sharp, and E, what if we started on the major third, the C sharp, and then played C sharp, E, and A? We would call that a first inversion triad. We could also start on the 5th or the E note, play the 1, and end up on the 3rd. Now, I think that second inversion arpeggios sound especially emotional. You know, going from the 5th to the root sounds super solid and super stable. It's like coming home. And then when you add the 3rd on top of that, it just is filled with a lot of emotional content. You know, the 3rd is a very expressive note. Major thirds sound particularly sweet. and minor thirds sound just sort of inherently sad. So here's second inversion A major. We've got E, A, C sharp. Second inversion F sharp minor. We've got C sharp, F sharp, and A. And of course, we can take these second inversion arpeggios through our chord progression, which obviously that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go through the progression a couple of times, and I'm going to use shapes that start with the first note of the arpeggio. Remember, it's the fifth, not the root. They're either going to be on the A or the low E strings. Let's check it out. And now for the last puzzle piece, we're going to add the +1 in what I call triads +1, and that's what Andy Timmons uses so often. But not just Andy Timmons, Steve Lukather, David Gilmour, Mark Knopfler, and so many more great players use this technique as a staple of their improvising. So the concept is to add just one note that is not part of the triad to what we're playing here. So in our case today, we've been playing second inversion triads, and what we're going to do is we're going to add the note between the 1 and the 3 to our lick. So let's try this with our A major second inversion. So we start off with our E note at the 7th fret of the A string, go to the A note at the 7th fret of the D string, but instead of going straight to C sharp, we're going to play the B at the 9th fret of the D string, and then the C sharp. So we've momentarily got this sus2 sound before we resolve it to the major third. And to my ears, it tells an entirely different story emotionally, and it's just such an effective device. Now let's try it with F sharp minor. So we'd start with our C sharp at the 4th fret of the A string, play F sharp at the 4th fret of the D string. Then we're going to go to G sharp at the 6th fret of the D string. And we finish with our A at the 7th fret. And again, we've got that sort of suspended sound there momentarily before we resolve it. Sounds great. And now that you're hearing it, you're probably starting to realize just how often you hear this technique used by these great players. And that, my friends, is the technique that Andy Timmons used to make another grown man cry and set the internet buzzing. Now, in that little video, Andy played first D flat major, followed by B flat minor, and then G flat and A flat. And of course, there was more to the composition, but essentially the whole thing was made up of second inversion triad +1s, where he's adding the note between the 1 and the 3 of each arpeggio. So how can we use this to start playing great sounding melodic solos today? Well, let's go back to our example chord progression. What we're going to do, we're going to use the triad +1 of each chord, and of course we're going to change it as the chord changes to match the chord. But we're going to add a little bit of a twist. What we're going to do is we're going to pedal from the 5 to a note and back to the 5 until we get to the 3rd of the arpeggio. So with A major, we'd start off, the 5 is E, we go to A, go back to the 5, then to B, and then to C sharp. So we get this. Now, we're going to add one more phrasing element, and we're going to bend to the 3rd of each arpeggio. That's A major. Let's do it with F sharp minor. And again, we're going to carry on in that fashion through the whole chord progression. So here comes the backing track. I'm going to play along with it, do a couple of times through. Check it out. Here we go. Now, obviously, we wouldn't want to play the same lick over and over and over like that when we solo. We would want to take a lick like that and combine it with other licks and phrases, or we could try to make up variations of that particular lick. But now you know that anytime you're looking for a melodic launching pad that you know is going to sound great, you can use this triad plus one concept. Hey, I'm going to leave you with one last thing to practice. If you start a triad plus one on the 6th string, you can actually play through 3 octaves. It's a great way to get from one register to another on the guitar, and it sounds super expressive without, again, sounding overly much like you're playing scales. So let's take A major, and we're going to start it on the 6th string. There's an E note at the 12th fret, so we've got E, A, B, C sharp. We've got E at the 14th fret of the D string. And then we've got A, B, C sharp on our G string. Lastly, we've got E at the 17th fret of the B string. And then we've got A, B, C at the 17th, 19th, and 21st frets of our high E. Played fluidly, sounds like this. So let's try it with F sharp minor. So we've got C sharp at the 9th fret of the A string. Then we've got F sharp, G sharp, and A on our A string. We've got another C sharp at the 11th fret of the D string. Then we've got F sharp, G sharp, and A right there adjacent to it on our G string. Lastly, we've got a C sharp at the 14th fret of the B string. And then we've got F sharp, G sharp, A at the 14th, 16th, and 17th fret of the high E strings. Played fluidly, sounds like this. So there you have it. A technique that Andy Timmons, Steve Lukather, David Gilmour, Mark Knopfler, and scores of other players use in their improvisations all the time. And it just sounds so good that even a studio legend like Tim Pierce felt compelled to do a video about it on his channel. Now, this is important stuff, folks. It sounds beautiful, it sounds so expressive, and yet it's pretty darn simple. And with a little bit of practice, you can make it part of your repertoire, and with just a very little bit of practice, you can start using it today to craft your guitar solos. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Get out there, start practicing, have fun with your guitar playing. I'm going to be out here making these videos that are going to help you make sense of soloing, and I will see you soon. Take care.